Thanks for joining me on this YouTube here after the conclusion of the morning and afternoon games. And the 49ers stand alone atop the NFC West. And here it is. Here are the standings right there. 49ers at 4-1, followed by the Seahawks, the Rams, and holy cow, the Arizona Cardinals. You know, my line has always been the Cardinals are always a year away from being a year away. After seeing how they blew that game to Tennessee on Sunday in inconceivable fashion, I'm going to alter that and say they might be like 5 years away from being 5 years away. That was, I can't tell you for sure that it was the worst loss I've ever seen an NFL team have, but I think it was the worst loss I think I've ever seen an NFL team have. And one of the reasons was because of this thing. And I don't often tweet a whole lot while I'm watching other games being played. But this one right here, I tweeted this. And I said it's the most fun play. It's maybe it's, there's kind of the devilish side of me finds great amusement in seeing guys who aren't, who just have a touchdown right there in their face, forget or what, I don't know what it is. Just have this total brain cramp where they drop the football before they reach the end zone. And we've seen it at every level of football. And I just don't understand it. How you would think that one person would, I think it was Deshaun Jackson was one of the first guys I saw do that. And it might have been like on a Monday night game against the Cowboys when he was with the Eagles. And I remember just watching that and thinking, well, that'll be not only the last time he does that, but that'll be the last time anybody ever. Oh, you know what? Leon led in the Super Bowl, but the game wasn't on the line at that point. The Cowboys were well on their way to. It wasn't. Was it? No, it wasn't in the Super. Oh no, it was in the Super Bowl. Yeah, I forget. It was a Steve Tasker or someone ran him down, and anyway, that was a long time ago. But on this day, it was Emari Demercado, the Arizona Cardinals running back, who had a touchdown just right there for him. And this was in a game where the Cardinals were decisively in front of this game, 21-3 at one point in the second quarter. And then Demercado has this, touchdown. He was inches away from the touchdown. But he drops it at like the 1 inch line. This was that in the fourth quarter even? Yeah, it was in the fourth quarter. He got credit for a 71-yard run, a voluntary fumble that ended up being a touchback. The Titans go down, score. That makes it 23-12. And then another crazy play, Cam Ward, the number 1 overall pick, he throws an interception, but then the interceptee, I guess, Taylor Demerson, Demerson, yeah, what am I talking about? He fumbled it, and then it was recovered in the end zone for a touchdown. So the Cardinals intercept Cam Ward, and the Titans still score a touchdown off of, and whatever, I don't get it. And then 49ers legend Joey Sly with the 29-yard field goal to win the game. So just wildness in the NFC West as the 49ers, as I say, 4-1. They have a 1-game lead. Oh, and the you know what? I'm going to talk a little bit about the Buccaneers win in Seattle. But first, I want to talk to you about something that John Lynch told me in my 49ers game plan interview last week. We did the interview before the game against the Rams, and I asked him about the elements that go into determining whether the 49ers would make a trade or why they would make a trade or how that could come about. What does he weigh? And I thought his answer was enlightening. And let me tell you the first part he said. He says, "I think there's always a component you have to earn the right." And he said it's probably talked more about in baseball than in football. But he goes, "Do you earn the right to motivate people to go acquire people?" So that means we got to keep playing good football so that this could be a guy that could make a difference. So in other words, if the 49ers, had lost to the Rams, if they had lost to the Buccaneers, they had lost to the Falcons, and they just went on this slide, it sounded to me like, John Lynch wouldn't even consider going out and getting an edge rusher to compensate or help compensate for the loss of Nick Bosa, because what's the point? Why give up resources when it's not going to do you any good anyway? So by what he said, do you earn the right to motivate people to acquire people? So it's a message to the team, like, if you want me to really seriously consider or go after somebody in a trade, then you have to start winning. So in that sense, the victory on Thursday night was a huge motivating factor, or a step in that direction. And then, even more to the point, some of the other things that happened on this day, the Philadelphia Eagles, that came in, a team that came in as, quite clearly the number one team in the NFC. Well, now, they lose at home. They blow a game against the Denver Broncos. And they lose that game 21-17. So the Eagles fall from the ranks of the unbeaten. Um, the Seahawks lose, so the 49ers are a game up on them, and they have the edge in that they've already beaten Seattle. The 49ers victory over the Rams on Thursday, 26-23 in overtime. That's a huge win because it gives the 49ers a lead over the Rams, both with one game and also, having that head-to-head. So it does put the 49ers in a position now where they can look at, hey, maybe they do need something more from a pass rusher. What John Lynch also had to say along those lines, so you got to earn the right for the front office to look toward going out and getting somebody. He said, there's not anybody on the trade market that you can replace Nick Bosa with. That was the point he made. And then he said the first thing they want to do, or they would have to do, is identify people who might even be an option, and you never know what another team is thinking. And so he actually said there have been times where they'll call teams about, hey, what about this player? And the team will actually get offended. And what Lynch says, like, why? No, why would you even ask about him? We're not going to move him. And then the other part is, he said, even the teams that have started slow, they all believe in their heart of hearts, we're going to get this thing back on track, and we're not going to go there yet, meaning trade away a good player. So those are some of the elements of this that John Lynch talked about. But the number one takeaway was that 49ers win over the Rams. It definitely puts them in the ballpark toward looking to acquire an edge rusher. And hey, 49ers won the game against the Rams, but still in the past, and in that game, one sack of Matthew Stafford and one quarterback hit. So in the past two games, 49ers defensive line, one sack, one quarterback hit. And let's face it, the one sack was on a blitz where basically Bryce Huff wasn't even blocked and was allowed basically a free run to Matthew Stafford. So that's where the 49ers are. Nothing would be imminent on a trade or anything of that nature. The trading deadline closes on November 4th, so the 49ers still have a lot of time to kind of see where this season is going. But on the subject of the 49ers' next opponent, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, they're a good team. They might be one of the three best teams. What would I put them at? Well, they're definitely one of the top five teams, I think, in the NFC. The Eagles, the Lions are good. The Packers I'm not really sold on the Packers. The Commanders had a big win against the Chargers. Maybe they're back on track. And by the way, Deebo Samuel looks really good. I thought he had a really good game, and he looked like the Deebo that 49er fans and anyone who's watched the 49ers over the past 6 or 7 years, that's the Deebo that we associate with during his time with the 49ers. But anyway, with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, they went to Seattle and they were shorthanded. They were playing without Mike Evans, two starters on offense. Mike Evans with a hamstring injury, the wide receiver, and running back Bucky Irving. He had a foot and shoulder injury. And then on defense, two guys that have kind of been splitting time at cornerback. They didn't play in this game. Jamel Dean with the hip and Benjamin Morrison with a hamstring. And they went up there and they went toe-to-toe with Seattle. And it was a really good game. And it was a Sam Darnold mistake. Sam Darnold was having a heck of a game until he kind of banks a pass off of a defender's helmet at the line of scrimmage, and it gets picked off. And the Tampa Bay Buccaneers come away with the big win. And again, another 49ers legend. It was Chase McLaughlin with the 39-yard field goal at the buzzer to win that game. But hey, the Buccaneers can put up a lot of points, and they have an explosive offense with Baker Mayfield, and the 49ers are going to have their work cut out for them. Coming out of that game against Matthew Stafford, where Stafford pretty much had his way carving up the 49ers defense. If the 49ers don't have the guys that can put the pass rush on Mayfield, make him uncomfortable, it could be a long day. But Mayfield's line against Seattle, and Seattle has a good defense too. But Mayfield's line, 29 of 33 for 379 yards and 2 touchdowns. And the receivers, Emeka Egbuka, the rookie, 7 targets for him, 7 targets, 7 receptions, 163 yards. So Diamador Lenore, Renardo Green, Marquis Siegel, Jason Pinnock, those guys are going to have their hands full with them. And speaking of the safeties, Pinnock and Siegel, I just kind of wonder what's going to happen with the 49ers when Malik Mustafa becomes available. There's a really strong chance the 49ers have a bonus practice, what they call a bonus practice, on Monday. I think that'll start around 1:30 or so. They expect to open the practice window for Malik Mustafa. And then once he's ready to go, do they ease him back in? Does he a starter week 1 that he's ready to go? I don't know what the plan is there with him, but it's going to be a difficult decision of what they do at the safety position. I think Siegel has generally played very well as a rookie. He will be a long-term starter for this team. There's no question in my mind. The question is he better right now than Jason Pinnock? Is he better right now than Malik Mustafa? And so what do they do there? And Pinnock on a 1-year deal? Do they feel like, hey, just let's let the young guy play because he's going to be around a while? So that's the decision that faces Robert Saleh and to a lesser degree, Kyle Shanahan. I would think that Saleh and 49ers defensive backs coach Daniel Bullocks, they would have more of a say in what they want to do, although at some point too, it becomes kind of a long-term organizational philosophy of what they want to do at that position. Do they think that it's close enough with Siegel and Pinnock that they just roll with Siegel? So that'll be one of the decisions that awaits the 49ers as Malik Mustafa expected to be back in practice. George Kittle and Brandon Ayuk not expected to have their practice window open. And then what the 49ers do with the other injured players. I don't think it's any guarantee by a long shot that Brock Purdy is back. In fact, I would kind of think that he won't be back for this game, but we'll see as the week goes on. I would think probably the same thing with Ricky Pearsall, although that's, I would say, a little bit more up in the air as far as how that knee feels from a stability standpoint. That's what he was complaining about after the game against Jacksonville, that he just didn't feel stable in that knee. They can't take any risks there with a second-year player who has 2 more years after this season. So they want to be cautious there, I would think. And then Juwan Jennings with the ankle and now the ribs as well. So 49ers trying to use their long bye week to get rested, get healthy. The Buccaneers have some of their own injury problems, and they're coming off a huge win against the Seattle Seahawks. Did I tell you what that score was? It was 38-35, a shootout. Like I said, Mayfield had a really good game. Darnold had a good game until he didn't, until he threw that pick in the last minute of the game that basically lost this game. But for him, he had 341 yards passing and 4 touchdowns, but the 1 interception. So that's where the 49ers are. Let me put that full screen back up there of there it is. 49ers are 4-1. And then, as I mentioned, that game that they have against Tampa Bay is considered the marquee game of the week next week. That's why it was moved up from a 10 a.m. Pacific Coast start to moved back from 10 a.m. to 1:25 p.m. So a lot of the country is going to be able to see that one. And then not a lot of easy games. The Seahawks now have to bounce back and play at Jacksonville. The Rams go to Baltimore, although Baltimore is struggling. They look horrible. So can the Rams get back on track against the Ravens? That's part of that first place schedule for the Rams. By winning the West last year, the Rams play 3 teams that are uncommon to the other teams in the division. It's based solely on where you finish in the division from the year before. So the Rams have already played the Eagles. They lost to them. They'll play the Ravens here in week 6, and then later they play Detroit, whereas the 49ers in those same divisions play the New York Giants. Out of the NFC East. Out of the NFC North, they play the Bears, and out of the AFC North, they play Cleveland. And then the other game is the Cardinals at Indianapolis. And like I said, the Cardinals, 5 years away from being 5 years away. All right. Thanks for watching this video, and check me out over at NBCSportsBayArea.com. Thanks for, whatever. If you haven't already, please subscribe, leave a comment, leave a like, and that is it for now.